All right, what's going on, guys? Mason Bruner here with the REI Sift and DataFlick team. This is the third interview we've done since the big merger, and we're still getting used to saying all that. So bear with me if I look funny saying it, but it's been a pretty exciting time over here in our side of things. Today we have Alex Wojcik with us. He's a longtime Sift user. I met him a couple years ago at our Sift Summit event, and he was super engaged there. We did the audit, and I remember he had a really good time with that. And since then, his company appears to be just growing very rapidly. So before the call, he was telling me he's got a whole bunch of stuff in the pipeline right now. So let's get him in the call here. Let's introduce him and just kind of run us through what's going on in your end of things these days.
Yeah. Well, Mason, thanks for introducing me. Yeah, and I really enjoyed meeting you and everybody on the SIF team. I got to meet Kylie in person, and she's someone who's on the back end just making things happen for years. So yeah, I've been rocking with you guys for I think something like 5 years. It's been
Oh,
really
really?
good, and yeah, done a lot of really good deals with Sift and used it for a lot of deep prospecting and finding some things. And yeah, I think right now we have three fix and flips that we're working on rehabs. We got two in inventory, two under contract, and then I'm also a real estate agent and stuff like that. So I got a couple of little brokerage things going on. So I think that's like 8 deals, and then we got a couple other things that are pretty close with our lead manager and stuff like that. So yeah, things are definitely going good, and it's a weird time. It's mid-July right now, and things are really weird. Things were really hot here in 2025 towards January to March, and things just have really fell off a cliff. And in May, inventory is super
Really?
high, and yeah, things have really slipped back in the Colorado market. We've seen prices go down about 9 to 11%, so we're a lot more conservative and a little bit nervous on some of these flips, but I got them with some good margins, and we're going to clean them up really nice. So I think we'll be okay, but yeah, it's definitely a changing
Okay.
market.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's talk about a couple of these flips. How have you adapted your margins and your offers with the current market and all that, and kind of what's your plan with the flips? Maybe discuss how things have changed for you in the flipping space over the years, how what you've learned, stuff like that. That could be maybe valuable for someone out there who's relatively new or looking for new insight.
Yeah, I like to do the kind of sort of a advocate kind of play. So I
Okay.
actually started off flipping instead of wholesaling. But I was like, well, if I can get these deals under contract at a wholesale price, and I can, manage the contractors. My wife helped manage a lot of those contractors. So it's definitely not me on the project management. So you got
Sure.
to have somebody good to manage those people. But if we do that, even if we mess up, we're going to make more money in theory than if we just wholesale them. And so that's what we started out doing. I started doing subject twos and stuff like
Okay.
that. And recently, on a lot of our deals, I'm still underwriting them. I want to, whatever the price is, I want to try to get it like maybe 20 to 30 grand less. And my price point is, I'm purchasing properties around 300 to 325, and they're worth
Okay.
about 500 to 550. So right around that 70% mark, or we do like 80% minus repairs, minus a wholesale fee, for an example, to give you guys kind of an idea for your market.
Okay.
So that's what I've been doing. And then in terms of like the ARV, I'm looking, and of course, when I'm comping, it's really important. I think comping is one of the biggest strategies people don't talk about. And there's a huge art and science behind it, right? People want something that has fresh kitchens and baths. So you need to comp your properties with that in mind, and also the roof and the windows. I think those are some of
Okay.
the things that people look at apart from, paint and, stuff like that. So making sure that those are dialed in. And yeah, we're always, taking off maybe about 5 to 8% of what the most recent comps are for the last 90 days because we just don't know where things are going to land.
Okay. On the comping side of things, is it follow the typical kind of like sold in the last, 6 months, square footage over under 300 feet, that kind of thing, or how does it differ for you?
Yes, I'm also looking in the last 90 days because I think that gives you a better idea.
Closer,
Um,
yep. Okay.
yeah, closer because I mean we're in July right now, so stuff that sold in January, February was a little bit of a different time. There was a new administration then. Now we're having tariffs hit and things are a little bit different. Consumer confidence is a lot lower, and of course, inventory is a lot higher. So when you're looking at these properties that are active, I'm seeing, 3 to 5 properties active in almost every subdivision that I'm underwriting deals in. And so it's like if you know that there's going to be a couple of those houses on market still, when you're done rehabbing your property in about 3 to 4 months, maybe less, you got to make sure yours shines better than those. So I'm even underwriting a little bit more for the rehab to make it nicer. Like, what can I make about this house to make it a nice space? I know a lot of people have been doing those 1 inch panels on some of those accent walls, either in the
Okay.
bedrooms or something like that. I mean, it's not very expensive. It's $300 for materials and maybe paying a guy $200 to $300 for the day. So it's like an extra $600 to $800 to have an accent wall, and then you have it staged nicely with plants and a mirror. I mean, that goes a
Okay.
real long way, real long way.
How long into your career before you started staging?
That's a good question. I mean, when I was flipping in 2020 and 2021, we didn't need to stage anything. Um, but it depends on those price points. I think when you have places that are kind of awkward, I always like to stage them. I always like to stage the primary bedrooms, the kitchen, and then the most usable space. I don't really stage offices. I think people know it's an office, but if you have a
Sure.
really small bedroom that doesn't feel usable, we'll put like a baby crib or something like that in it to make it feel like it's bigger than than it
Okay.
actually is. Because if you don't stage and the bedroom seems smaller, people start thinking, well, can I even fit, a full-size bed in here? Or there's no way a queen will fit. When you put a queen in, and it'll fit really well. So spending some money on staging, maybe in our market, staging is around 12 to $2,000 for the first month. I think it's well worth it, especially in this market. You don't want to put something up and not have it sell quickly. So having those photos. Another thing, I used to work at Zillow too, so something on the listing side. I think it's very important to have the 3D walkthroughs, right? That syndicates with
Okay.
Zillow, Realtor, and Redfin. That's really important. The 3D walkthroughs, whether it's Matterport or just regular 3D, that gives people a buyer experience. One, two, it's going to show up on those algorithms better. And number three, it allows more people to see it on their feed, which can
Sure.
increase showings, which can increase more people seeing those properties.
Sure. Okay. So
Yeah.
with the cost of the staging around $2,000, what's the cost of that Matterport? And then I guess so I can see the total, maybe people can consider adding that into their offer, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really not expensive. I mean, professional photos for real estate photography floats around $300, and then the Matterport might be an additional 150 bucks. So all
Okay.
in, and plus the floor plans also syndicate with Zillow too to make it show up higher on the algorithm. So you do the 3D walkthrough, the floor plans and professional photos. And if you throw in an open house, it's also that's free. But by putting an open house and having those three, I call that the marketing trio, and that increases your exposure. And I mean, all in, that's maybe $600, probably less,
Okay.
depending on if you can get a good deal from somebody. And professionally edited photos goes a very long way. Don't do it on your iPhone or Android or
Right.
whatever. Just have somebody who has their creative do that, do the dusk photos, to edit them. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes all the difference, with that presentation and getting showings booked for sure.
Okay. So you'd consider those non-negotiables at this point.
I mean, if you're flipping, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Where are these deals coming from?
So we get a couple of sources. I've been known as the door knocking guy. I've been door knocking my whole
What?
life. I used to sell, oh man,
Really?
I used to knock on doors and sell entertainment books to families. And
What?
yeah, I used to roll up and I was the top salesman for a while, like when I was in grade school. And I would essentially ask him, hey, I'd ask the guy in the house, I'd be like, hey, do you like taking your wife out to dinner? And it was sort of a losing question because if they said yes, I said, here's a coupon book to take them out. And if they said no,
Yeah.
well, you have an excuse to take out your wife, especially if she's standing there and you got a cute kid, talking to him. So I'd roll around with my wagon. And so that's kind of how I got my start. And I've been doing comic book rentals and stuff in grade school. But now in real estate, I would door knock pre-foreclosures, death certificates, and divorces. And the conversation is pretty straightforward, but I've had a lot of luck with that because if you think about a lot of these distress lists or even bankruptcies, right? These people are getting a lot of mailers, a lot of texts, a lot of cold calls. Plus, they're getting stuff not only from real estate investors, but people trying to refinance, people trying to do tax relief stuff. I mean, they're getting hit with all different types of consolidation and other things. So when you could just roll up and just talk to somebody and be like, hey, how is this affecting you? And talking to them about like the mental piece, it makes the world of a difference. And they remember that.
Okay.
And I've had people actually hit me back up later, like, hey, I talked to you a year and a half ago. I'm ready. And it's like, all right, I'll be there in an hour, you know?
Wait,
So, so door knocking is one way that I've gotten a lot of deals and I would recommend. Um, we do some direct mail for sure. And then I've tried some paid sources. And I mean, those paid sources, they're different in every market, right? We've tried paid per lead. We've tried, um, PPC with different providers. And it just depends, man. It's just, I've had all those work in the last year.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious about this door knocking. You've been doing it for a long time. Two questions. One, what translated over to real estate from being a kid selling what is it, entertainment
Entertainment books,
plan,
coupon
yeah,
books.
with
Yeah.
coupon books. What's translated? What have you been like? I actually used a tool that I learned, or was it just purely the confidence and not the fear that came with it? What was it?
I think it just is one of those things like being kneecap to kneecap with people to talk to them through their problems. I mean, it helps. I mean, it also was a thing where I think about the mindset of it. I'm like, okay, these people are already getting primed with other people's mailers, other people's phone calls. And when I go and show up, they might have been thinking about selling and now they have somebody in front of them. Now I'm that go-to person and I have a nice little one pager that I give them. And it might be how to, cure your foreclosure, get out of foreclosure, or different tips on whatever they want to do. Now I leave them with a resource and it gets put in a drawer, but it's bigger than everybody else's. Maybe it's laminated and yeah, I mean the confidence to do that, it's very scary at first, but then after you knock like 25, 50 of them, it gets a little bit easier and people actually will say often like, "Hey, I've been praying for somebody like you," or "I've been waiting for somebody to come talk to me because I put my head in the sand," or sometimes people are embarrassed to even talk about it. So by you
Sure.
going up and initiating it, you really can change a lot of people's lives. So that's what makes me want to do it is like a lot of times I help people or I even help them keep their house and then we stay in touch and they appreciate me and then I get a Google review out of it for an example. So it's a win-win and then they stay in touch with me and who are they going to call when they do decide to sell later down the line, you know?
Sure. Okay, my second question about door knocking would be it's actually a situation. So there is a house actually about a street and a half over from me. It's got tarps on the roof, cinder blocks holding the tarp down. I looked it up in Sift. I got numbers. I called this lady. It was a California number, so I'm thinking, okay, we got a rundown house, out of state owner. I called, and the lady said, "That's not my house," which she's listed on the PA site. She said, that's my mom's house. Now,
Oh.
so this is where I'm like, okay, well, what's going on here? Now there's a white car parked out front. I haven't knocked it, but I feel like it'd be a good knock. How would you open that conversation when you would go up to the door?
Well, that's a great question. One of the things when you're door knocking, I always like to look and see what's going on with the house, right? Are there any type of flags, right? Are there any military flags? That kind of gives you an idea what branch they might be in. You might be able to create some rapport with that, or sports teams, or hobbies, or you see maybe some kids' toys or something like that. I would
Sure.
check on that vehicle first, right? Does that vehicle look like it operates? That's huge. If it's not operating, that's one. Two, are the tags, if the tags are out of service and they're behind a couple of years, well, likely there's something going on there and that vehicle doesn't run for a reason or the tags are a couple of years old. I've gone up to properties that look like that and the tires are good, but they've been, the registration is out for 10 years, 15 years. And I'm like, this vehicle's not moving. You can also look inside the car. Is it kind of like really disorganized, like a hoarder might be living there? That gives you an idea of kind of what that interaction is going to look like. So when I roll up, I'll try to mention something about, the sports team or something like that. And I'll just knock on the door. I'll be like, hey, I'm one of the neighbors here. Do you what's going on with this place? Are you living here or is somebody else renting it or what? Are you guys in between tenants? And I kind of just ask, and you'll be surprised how many people actually tell you what's going on with it. Also talking to the neighbors, maybe before you knock on the door could be helpful. Be like, hey, I've seen this place with the tarps. I've lived here for a while. I'm on the other street. Do you know what's going on with, and then I would list off the owner and be like, yeah, I was talking to her before and I lost touch. Do you know what's the update? And literally neighbors will tell you everything.
Really?
And then that'll prime you to be able to have that conversation when you do knock on the door, because then you'll know, hey, the person that's living inside might be a family friend that's sort of estranged, that's staying there because the mom let them 5 years ago.
Yeah, I've been walking past it, man, and those I'll see it and I'll get the butterflies and I'm like, oh gosh. So I'll have to go knock it with this info now and maybe get back to you on that. Um, I'm also curious about the wholesales. You said you had quite a few of those going on right now. What's the deal on that?
Yeah, wholesales are good. Get them under contract. And I mean, I have a really good niche of one of the best buying pools is really calling up hard money lenders. Since I started out flipping, I was like, I don't want to work so hard, right? There's so many people that are looking for deals, or they say they're looking for deals, but really they're trying to wholesale them. I don't want somebody to daisy chain my deal and wholesale my wholesale and all that. So I know what the buyers look like. So I call up some of my hard money lender contacts, say, hey, who's finishing up with a project that needs one in the hopper? Like, who needs a new deal? And I get some of the best buyers. And I actually have one. I've made one phone call and then I sent, and that buyer was in Turkey, the country of Turkey randomly. So she wasn't interested. And then I sent out a text to my hard money lender last night. And I had one guy call me, say, hey, I'm interested in this price point. I live in this subdivision. I grew up here and I want that deal. When can we go look at it? So, I mean, I literally made one phone call and a text message, and I think I got my buyer. I generally, when I do my wholesale deals, I try to have 2 to 3 people go at a time, and it's me going in, and I don't do this big open house thing. I have control. I make sure that people want the deal before they go and check it out, and if they do, then we schedule a time to go look at it, and bada bing, bada boom, we get it under contract. We do like 5 or 10,000 earnest money, non-refundable deposit type of thing, and sign my agreement and move forward. And it's an assignable agreement, and it's great.
Okay. And then wholesale deals, those are coming in similar to the flips, or is there what's going on with that? Are you still doing first to market stuff? Are you
Yeah, we fell off a little bit with our first to market. We used to do it pretty hard. The challenge with that is I've done more paid marketing, so I'm
gotcha?
focusing more on staying on top of the paid marketing, but we definitely want to continue doing the outbound first to market. I mean, that's
Okay,
kind of my bread and butter. I've created some trackers with that, and yeah,
sure.
I think the first to market is huge if you can stay on top of it for sure.
Okay, cool. So then what's kind of the big goals for the rest of the year in terms of like milestones you're trying to hit? What are you aiming towards right now?
Yeah, no, that's good. For us, I mean, we're getting a deal about every 3 weeks. I want to try to increase that. And I honestly want to get to a deal every 2 weeks. I know that seems like a very small pivot, but I mean, that would be huge for us. But again,
Yeah,
that's going to require some other things from us. That's going to require me going on more appointments and also getting some help with dispo. So my transaction coordinator, my executive assistant, I'm going to have her kind of help more with the disposition side. Again, disposition is a very difficult thing to master as well, because you got to be able to talk to the buyers about the potential opportunity, the issues with the property. You bring those up right away. And I feel like people sleep on the disposition agent. So I want to try to train her for that. And then we do have a lead manager and my data manager who's been with us for a long time, Marlon. He's awesome. He's just wonderful. He helps with our data, and he's also a marketing manager. So I really want to help people grow into their seats. So for Marlon, I want to see him, being a really good marketing manager and helping us really understand our data and our KPIs and our response rate with our direct mail. We're sending out about, like, I think it's 16 or 18,000 a month, and then also staying on track of PPL for our refunds. And then I want to see my lead manager be able to book more qualified appointments. I've kind of looked into it. We're booking some appointments that probably don't need to be, or phone calls that she should continue. So instilling confidence in her. It's not very measurable in terms of the goals, but
okay,
yeah, we probably want to get closer to about 35 to 40 deals.
okay,
Um, but that's going to take a little bit more capital and probably another team
sure.
member.
Okay. So you had mentioned instilling confidence in one of your team members. How is your skill set and like relationship with leadership changed over the past 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed a lot, because you're not only, I mean, you're trying to live your life to try to help other people, you know live their best life. And so trying to figure out what they want and what they need can be a challenge because sometimes that falls to the wayside. I would say it's really changed a lot because I do take a lot more responsibility for things. And it's like, well, if something, negative happens, right, it's on me. Like for an example, we did some stuff with Dataflick last year, and um I sent it to a mail house, and I didn't realize that when I sent it to the mail house, we reduced like the check offer. I can't remember what it was. We were sending it to them at 70%. And then when we sent it to the provider, they reduced it another 30%. So we are hitting people with, I think the value came back to 56% of what it was. And we spent like 7 grand on that mail campaign. And I was the one who noticed it, but and my data manager was like, "Oh, that's on me." But I was like, "No, man, that's definitely on me because I told you to do it." So as as a leader, you got to own up to a lot of things that, are a business problem and not make it a personal problem. And I think that's one of the most challenging things because a lot of times people like to point fingers or try to figure out who's at fault. And it's like, well, at the end of the day, you're running the company. So you got to take that ownership, and I think people appreciate that. And that also instills confidence in the leadership and trust. You know what I mean? Because nobody wants to be blamed, right? And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
hard.
Have you had employees start with you that were maybe nervous about their role and you had to find ways to make them feel like they were capable? Um, like what is has that been something that's come up for you? It's something that I've kind of talked about in the past with other interviews.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I had a guy start with me in 2023, and he did pretty good, but he ended up falling off, and I think it was a combination of things. But what it really comes down to is not necessarily maybe it was his performance and stuff like that, but the expectations of his role, right? Because I started out doing the door knocking thing, and then I started moving to other channels, but I was still trying to keep him doing the door knocking and doing that as like his main method. But then I was also trying to have him take inbound stuff. So he had a mixed role of like acquisition and a lead manager type of thing, but he didn't own one of them. So that made it a
Sure.
big problem for him. And that ultimately created confusion for him. And then once we kind of dialed it in, he started to understand more. And yeah, I think that that's really difficult because anybody can make a job description, but it's like once you actually have that person, you need to meet with them regularly and go over their KPIs and go over the different things. And that's a difficult thing, right? Like someone who's a sales manager versus a sales trainer, they're two different things. And when you try to do both, it is challenging. And you sometimes let your team down if you don't know the difference. And that's something that I did. I didn't know the difference at that time. And it was just, you didn't know what you don't know. And it was a new role. But I've gotten better at that. So now I have a sales training and then I have a
Okay.
sales manager. So I think that's a really important distinction. And one person can do both, but you have to have two distinctions. And when you make it clear to the person that you're training that that's what you're doing, they get more clarity on what they're doing too.
When did that sales training come about?
Well, I've always, I've done a couple of different things. There's like the sales league. There's a couple other ones. It's like where people jump in and they do like Zooms and they do
Yeah.
role plays and stuff. We've also done like I think what is it? John Martinez has one with REI Sales Academy.
Okay.
So yeah, I've done a couple of these and I think they're good. Also, Chris Voss, he has a really good this one, the Never Split the Difference book.
Yeah, yeah,
He
I
has
read
a
that.
whole, yeah, he has a master class, which is super awesome. He talks about tonality and mirroring and matching and all that. And that's came into play and that's been really helpful for sure.
Okay. I guess one of my last questions would be, when you started in the flipping route. Typically, it's you'll see the wholesaling route, and then eventually, you added in wholesaling, and somewhere in there, I'm not sure when you were an agent, maybe prior to all that. But how would you advise an investor who's thinking they're ready to add another monetization model to their real estate company, like whether it's adding in flipping, adding in wholesaling? What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I think it's have success with something first or learn how to analyze it. If you don't know how to analyze it, get some help, right? Like ask someone who's a mentor, like, how do I analyze this? And most people will say, give it 6 months or give it 3 months to really see what that is. And I think you need to really get down to your numbers and realize, hey, I put money into this channel or I've put time into this channel. How many hours or how many dollars have I put into this? Or how many doors have I knocked? Or how many people have I mailed? Or what does that look like? And how many leads did that come out to? How many of those are qualified leads? And by qualified leads, I mean people who actually have a legitimate timeline and an actual reason to sell. Those are qualified leads. And then how many appointments and how many offers. You should, if you're going on an appointment, make an offer regardless. I mean, everybody says that, but I don't always do that. I try to do that. And I think mine's at like 82%. It's like I'm going on appointments and I'm not making an offer. Whether it's a novation or it's a fix and list or it's a fix and flip or a wholesale or whatever, I need to give them some options, right? So I think that's one of the big things. And for me, I actually started doing fixing and flipping and stuff like that, real estate investing. And once I was successful at that, then I added in the real estate agent side because I was like,
Okay.
well, I'm a lot more proficient than a lot of these other people that are actually doing this. Like I should be a real estate agent as well because I'm an investor and I'm a licensed investor. And so that gave me a lot more meat on the bone, if you will, with a lot of
Yep.
my fix and flips because I was able to do that. Plus, I was able to be in control of choosing the buyers, which is very important for your fix and flips. You need to have somebody who can choose those buyers. So yeah, I think that's one of the best ways to evaluate. Another thing, a little nugget, don't do too many channels at once. And I've learned this from a lot of people. Actually, Ren Bartlett kind of taught me this. He was with Irby and a couple other
Okay.
places down in the South, and he does some facilitating for one of the big masterminds and stuff. And Ren Bartlett told me, "Hey man, don't get more than three channels," because he had like 8 or 9 channels at once. But when you have more channels, you have more chaos, right? So for me, I have 2 channels, 2 paid channels, and then a prospecting or a cold calling, door knocking type of channel as well. So I have my 3 channels, and I'm dialed in and I'll evaluate those quarterly and see where they're at, as opposed to trying to do too many things. Because if you have too many things, then you don't have someone on your team that's owning each channel. Things fall through the cracks and you're wasting money anyway.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom. Well, I would say this is extremely valuable. This was action packed. I mean, you had value from beginning to end. Sometimes I got some slow interviews, but this was smooth and to
Yeah,
the point. So,
that's right.
I,
Let me share one last thing at the very end here.
what's
So
up?
I think you need to go with your intuition and your gut. My father taught me to always go with your intuition. I'll give you a story that's wild. So, um, my dad wasn't in business, but he told me always go with your gut feeling. And so I had this property. The guy was out of state. It was a property that I've seen similar to like what you're talking about. It's been empty. It had broken windows. And so I saw it for a few years and I called him. And on the 17th attempt, he answered. And he answered, and it was a one call close. We got the property under contract. And I was trying to get him to do a DocuSign. He was a little bit older. He was out on the East Coast, and I'm in Colorado. Okay. And so I'm trying to get this guy to sign it. He couldn't. I said, you know what? I'll get a mobile notary out to you. Got him this mobile notary. It cost me like 300 bucks. He was in a county of 300 people, and I got it FedExed over to me. Well, I got that key FedExed over to me, and I went and tried to take that key to go inside the house. Well, I noticed in the driveway, like I was talking about, I saw 2 vehicles, one from Tennessee plates that expired, I think, in 2015, and this was in 20, I think this was 2021, in September of 2021.
Okay.
And then there was another plate from, I think it was Michigan, and that had plates that expired in 2008. And I
Okay.
was like, okay. And I called up the guy, said, "Hey man, is this person, I thought you said this was vacant." He's like, "It's supposed to be vacant." Long story short, he had a family friend that was watching over the property, that was, doing the landscaping and doing the snow removal, and he wasn't paying him. So she said, "Hey, I have access to this house. I'll just let somebody go stay in it." And the people that ended up staying in it actually, were were smoking crack and stuff. So the drug dealer moved in. So I ended up getting the drug dealer to answer the door. And I said, "Hey man, I'm under contract on this. I want to do a civil standby." That's also a nugget for you guys. If you have a property under contract and the tenants or the owner won't let you in, you can do what's known as a civil standby in your county. And the sheriff will show up, and they do it first come, first serve. So you might have to wait 10 minutes. It might be two
Sure.
hours. but they'll come and they'll facilitate to let you come inside the property and look and all that. And so we did that, and they were smoking crack and it was crazy. And then the cops chased this guy out of the house because he had some warrants, and this was in Denver. And so this house got cleared out and there was like three sheriffs there. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? And they're like, well, it's your house, I guess. I mean, you could do what you want. So it wasn't like a formal eviction. And I was like, I don't feel safe here. So I ended up leaving because I was going to the J. Cole concert and all this. And they promised that they would be gone. But then I come back, and I talked to one of the cops, and he said the next morning, he said, yeah, we weren't able to take him to jail because in Denver, you have to have, I can't remember what it was, $12,000 worth of fines or damages or whatever. And he had 11,200. And so he barely skirt. And I went back and talked to the guy, and he said, nah, man, I'm gonna keep doing my thing. I'm gonna keep pushing, my weight over here. And you come back with a court paper, with a court seal, and I'll leave. But until then, I'm not leaving. So I was like, man, I'm gonna have to evict this guy. So I talked to the owner. I know this is a little bit of a long story, but it
This is
gets
crazy. No,
interesting.
keep it
It's
going.
crazy. So I talked to the owner. I say, look, we have these people in the property, and we need to either evict them or we need to reduce the price. He's like, good old boy from, the East Coast out here. And he's like, you know what? I'll just go in and shoot him. I'm like, well, you can't go in and shoot him. You can't just shoot the tenants or the people that are squatting. So he was talking about coming back out, and he hasn't been out here for 7 years. And I said, no, man, I'll take care of it. He's like, let me talk to one of my lawyer friends or whatever. About 4 weeks goes by and we're still not getting anywhere. I said, okay, look, I understand you're trying to figure this out. Let's extend our agreement. And I extended it, I think 5 months. And this was in late October, early November. And he was not, me and him were supposed to get in touch around Thanksgiving. That ended up not happening. This is another nugget. I did a welfare check on my seller out in the state where he was, and they went and knocked on his door, and he was fine, and he just said, I want to be left alone. So I was like, okay. Then later, right before Christmas, I called him and his phone was going to voicemail.
Oh,
And I knew that this guy liked to drink Budweiser. That was his choice. And he had an issue with gout. So the more you eat meat and the more beer you have, it perpetuates this. And so I'm worried about him. I tried to send him certified letters, and he just wasn't responding. And it was the beginning. It was like the beginning of January, and I told my wife, I was like, hey, I need to go across the country and door knock this guy. She's like, really? You think so? I was like, I have this gut feeling. I need to go. So I decided to get on a plane, and I went out there and I met up with a buddy, and I think I flew into Knoxville, Tennessee, stayed with him the night, and then we took a rental car and we drove 7 hours to this guy. And so this is January of 2022. And we drive up here and we get to the county. It's snowing. And I can tell that, the way that this property is, nobody's left. There's no snow tracks. I couldn't knock on the front door because you could also tell the way that people come in and out of their house. So I knew that nobody used the front door. So I went around to the back because that's where the cars were, right? So you gotta think about that and where people come. But obviously you don't want to trespass on people's property, right? You want to be mindful of that. But I knock on the guy's back door and I see this dog barking, and it's a German Shepherd, and he doesn't look like he's mad that I'm there. He's concerned and barking. I'm like, man, there's something weird going on with this. So we tried knocking that first day, and then we went and got some food, came back, knocked again, and this dog is still just going crazy. And I'm just like, this is so weird. Came back the following day, he didn't answer, and then on the third day, I decided to leave him a note. So when you guys leave somebody a note, you can leave them a small little gift or whatever. And this guy, because I told you you love Budweiser, I left him a 30 rack of it, like a suitcase. They call it a suitcase of that. And I wrote on the note, like, you're probably wondering why I came out from Colorado. I hope you're doing okay. Give me a call. So Mason, I get home 3 days later and I get a call, and this lady's frantically like shouting at me. She's like, yeah, that, he passed away, and he ended up he died the day I was knocking on the door, which is wild. Yeah. He died from COVID, coincidentally enough. So he died from COVID before that, and it was also related to, I think, to his gout issue and all this. So it ended up being just a wild, wild situation. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? So I ended up, getting in. I was like, okay, talk to his friend. I said, who's in charge of this? And he's like, oh yeah, John. I think I will call him John. So John is going to be in charge of, running his affairs. And I'm like, okay. So I talked to this guy and he's like, yeah, I'm the local pet crematoriist of this county of 300 people and I will be the executor of the estate and I can work with you on this. It's going to take a couple of months. So I was like, oh my God. So again, I have this like timeline, right? I'm trying to beat my timeline before my offer or my extension,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, right? So that's in the background. So I'm following up with this guy. And so we end up talking and I was talking to him and he essentially got in touch with me and said, hey, you know what, Alex? I got to be honest with you. This is a really interesting situation. Um, your seller, he was supposed to be the trustee of his parents' estate. And he was supposed to take that over 11 years ago as the trustee. They were in oil and gas and they had a lot of money and a lot of assets, but he didn't want to sign anything because he didn't like his parents and didn't want their money. Well, the successor trustee of that trust passed away, I think, 11 days after my seller did. And he's like, I have to go through probate on that too. And I've been working on that. And Alex, honestly, this house out in Denver is not our priority. You've been working on it. We know that there's drug dealers in there. We know it's in bad shape. And you know what? How about we just sell it to you, you know, at like $100,000? And I was like, what about 95? And they said, could we do, and so he tried to, he balked, he said, what about 95? And then we agreed on 97.5. And I said, I'll pick up the closing costs. So we ended up getting that property, evicting the people. There was a bunch of, there was meth, right there. It tested positive for meth. So we went through the whole process with that. We fixed everything up. And so we ended up getting that property. We did put quite a bit of money in there. I think we put in over 90 grand and it ended up like appraising, I think for 550. So it was one of the deals of a lifetime. I spent about $1,200 flying there, doing my whole thing. I
Yep.
did end up catching COVID myself when
Oh
I
my
was out there,
God.
but it was all worth it because I got this deal. And now not only do I have this amazing story of intuition and grit and tenacity and going with a gut feeling, but I ended up getting a deal that, cash flows over $1,000 a month and it changed my life. And it was just because I listened to the simple advice from my parents, and honoring your parents is something that's very important. And so my dad just taught me, and he's not in business, he didn't do any business related things, but he said, follow your gut. And I think in business, there's a lot to be said about that. And when you don't follow your gut, that's when you make some of your biggest mistakes. If something's too good to be true, it probably is. If someone's telling you something that doesn't add up, it's probably not right. Follow your gut because there's definitely something there. And I think that that will help a lot of people make a lot of money and change a lot of lives. And ultimately, the neighbors were so happy I got the drug dealers out of there. Neighbors were so happy.
Yeah.
I got a 97-year-old neighbor that calls me every couple of months just to see how I'm doing. So it's
Wow. Yeah,
great.
that's really cool.
Yeah, so that's my story. I got a couple other crazy ones, but I figured that's the one that I had to share about door knocking and intuition and all that other thing, man. So
That is awesome. No, that's a great story, and it's a great way to end the interview too. A lot of valuable stuff in there. A lot of stuff you can take away as a new investor, experienced investor. There's good stuff in here for everyone. So extremely good. Thank you very much. I say we'll end it here, and we'll have to follow up with you in 6 months or so.
cool, man. Cheers. Right on, Mason. Appreciate you. Hit me up if you
Awesome.
guys need anything, guys.